So I was the one who did it. I called this emergency session of the talks. And basically there's two cases, very recent cases that touched me emotionally. I just wanted to talk about it, hear what these guys had to say. I probably going to affect the game in a multitude of ways. So that's what we're talking about. And I'll just outline briefly what they are. First of all, first case we're going to discuss is the Shevchenko case. A case of a high level GM cheating in a very low level way, basically the same way that Rousey's did with a phone in the bathroom, very unsophisticated. We're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about Christopher Yu getting thrown from the US Championship for smacking a videographer in the back in a very deliberate act of violence. So those are the two things that are, sending ripples through the chess world that we're going to talk today about. And I think we want to talk about Shevchenko first. That's a little bit more distant from us. For me, the Yu case is a little personal because I know the kid, but all right, here we go. Let's start Shevchenko. What are you guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I guess this happened earlier as well, but it was a pretty big story. For anyone that didn't hear, Shevchenko, basically he wasn't exactly caught with a phone in the bathroom, but they felt very strongly that he's the one that left the phone there and was trying to visit it and cheat and stuff. Kind of a wild story, actually, because for me, when I first heard of it, I guess I had a similar reaction to people now reacting to the Christopher story, which was, for me, it was so bizarre. I just didn't believe what was happening, because it's if you believe the details of the story, he's the most nervous, worst cheater ever of all time. Basically gave himself away with completely erratic behavior. And so just very, very bizarre story. I honestly don't know what to make of it. It's very sad, obviously, if it's true that he is just cheating or was planning to cheat. Brings up a lot of questions, did he cheat in other events? But yeah, kind of a shock. Definitely a big shock.
Let me give some of the facts behind what Kostya is alluding to, just for anyone who hasn't read up on the story, right?
Yes.
So the idea is that there was a telephone in a bathroom stall, and that his opponents alerted the tournament organizers that he was leaving the board a ton, just an amount of times that shocked them, not 2 times instead of once in the game, right? But more than 10 times. And he was leaving the board so much that his opponents followed him, and they found him once or twice sort of waiting around the bathroom area. Now, apparently there was a phone that was placed in one stall with a handwritten note on it about, please just leave this phone here. Something like that,
Right.
Don't turn it into reception or whatever. Just leave this phone sitting here, handwritten for some reason on the phone. And I think a couple times they found Shevchenko just sort of waiting to get into that stall and not using open stalls in the bathroom, right? So very weird that during a tournament game, you'd be waiting in a bathroom with available toilets and you're waiting for one stall that's currently occupied. And when somebody came in, he went back to the board as if, suddenly he didn't need to wait to go anymore or whatever it was, right? I think those are the most basic facts that sort of paint a picture of what we're talking about. It was notably erratic behavior, the whole standing around waiting thing. He's not actively doing anything. He's not taking a stroll up and down a hallway. And he had an opponent in the first round who drew with him, who was surprised enough by this behavior that he signaled the organizers, and then an opponent in the second round who lost to him, who also signaled the organizers. And what's the last detail maybe is that he used 2 separate phones, it seems, or he allegedly used 2 separate phones, potentially used 2 separate phones, because one phone was found at the end of the day on the first day, and on the second day it was a second phone. Right. With handwritten notes And the organizers compared the writing on the note and thought it resembled his score sheet. So that's another, incidental piece of evidence. So that's the overall picture of like just really, really not very sneaky. Like he's copying Rouse's, but more, but less practiced, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's super weird. And also I feel like it should be said, like normally organizers aren't looking to hunt down players and like catch someone for cheating. If anything, organizers are often trying to like kind of keep things like more under the rug. Like there was a cheater at the Maya Open that was caught in Portugal where I played, and the organizers very much wanted to just like keep it like hush hush, like not make it like a big story out of it, even though they obviously like kicked the cheater out of the tournament, but they didn't want to like make a big thing. So the fact that these organizers like kind of came out with this and like they're the ones like accusing him, like for me it's kind of a big deal. Like that's a huge sentiment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess there's two kind of perspectives that immediately pop into my head on whether or not organizers would want to talk about it, right? From one perspective, you want to discourage other cheaters by showing them that cheaters are getting caught, right? So you want to be like, look, we're on top of stuff. We're going to find you. Like, you don't want any part of this. From another perspective, you'd rather keep the attention on people playing fairly and like good games and stuff like that, right? Like there's this whole idea that you don't want to give a ton of attention, even in a classroom with children, right? You don't want to give a ton of negative attention to disciplining, right? Or if there's a fight between kids, you want to give more attention to the victim than the aggressor, right? So, it's like a question of where are we putting our focus and our thought, right? Do we want it to be on the negative or on the positive?
Yeah.
So for me, I think I'm going to say why I think it's a big deal and kind of, well, touches me and chess players. I'm sure you guys as well. But just to state the obvious, when you go play in St. Louis, okay, as I did with some beautiful conditions, the best you can imagine, what happens is there's an incredible amount of resources that are spent to prevent cheating. It's not just that the blinds are pulled down and somebody is like looking into the bathroom stalls, but like you go there and there are two, not just one. This is for like a smaller tournament, two people there wanding you down and then doing a special thing where they're checking for something in your ear, like some kind of electrical piece deep in your ear. And the amount of resources that requires is just stunning. So when you think of basically every other event, it's not some elite event, right? Basically every other event that I played, the ability for somebody to do a slightly more sophisticated cheat than Shevchenko has done is just there. No one's checking for stuff in your ears, for example, right? And so it creates this incredible anxiety. Like for me, online chess, the amount of cheating I've seen recently, even at the lower levels, is so extreme. I just, I don't take it even that seriously. But then my sanctuary is this over the board realm, which is then threatened extremely, even if there's the suspicion that it's happening a lot. Like if it's happening a little bit, I'm not going to get too excited. I'll be hurt by it, but I'm not going to be too excited. But if there's the feeling, whether it's real or not, but if there's some kind of pervasive feeling that it's happening all the time, then it's very unpleasant. And I have had opponents walk away from the board on their move, and it's incredibly disconcerting. You just go, your mind instantly goes from, I'm just playing this game, to, oh no, this person is cheating, and you don't know if they're cheating, and do you start following them around? What do you do? Same as these guys, round 1 and 2 opponents of Shevchenko described. They're like losing their minds and they're, trying to figure it out. So that kind of thing can really be a killer for the game. And I really want to stress, like it's a lot of work to try to put in anti-cheating stuff, especially if you're going to be a little bit more sophisticated than this guy, right? Yeah. So anyways, that's why it really hurts me. And I think the only thing I want to add to that is A lot of these players who are cheating, I think, are doing it with the rationalization that they have come to suspect all of their opponents of cheating. So then when they do it, it's like seen as no big deal. It's just part of the game. Kind of like the way the Tour de France, everybody was cheating in the Lance Armstrong era. They probably still are, but once you believe that your competitors are doing it, then you're just going to get on that same train and have no moral qualms with it at all. And then it just becomes worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think cheating in chess would be a little bit different than doping in sports, because in sports you would still feel like you're doing the thing, but with like a boost. When you're cheating in chess, it's just ultimately it's stockfish versus stockfish. You have nothing to contribute.
Just black and white, like you're killing the game. There's no
like you basically tell stockfish. You could tell stockfish, I want you to play the Grunfeld instead of the King's Indian or something like that. But like afterwards, it's like what you have no your hands are off the wheel, sort of. So it's harder to really. I think it could be a little harder to rationalize that you're playing the game.
But if you're a cell phone cheater like this guy, then what you're really doing is at the most, I think, in fact, in Rousey's case, it wasn't like he was doing it every move. Right. He just came to the realization that if you're like a 2,500 GM and you have a sense of when the critical moves are, then just maybe once or twice a game, that's when you get your boost. And that's going to be worth hundreds of rating points, as long as you're mildly intelligent about like, you're playing the game and then when the critical moments are, and that's when you go to the bathroom, Yeah. So that's like, anyways, I'm not rationalizing. I'm just saying how it's, at least that kind of cheating is similar to the bicycling thing.
And I mean, it's like, it's hard to believe what a cheater says, right? Or I mean, what's the point of listening to or trying to believe what a cheater says? Because I mean, dishonest people, I generally discount what they say. Mm-hmm. I think what Rousey said was like he was first just double checking stuff out of nervousness, like he thinks he's come up with the move and knows what he wants to do, and then he would just go like check, like, is my move actually good? Mm-hmm. Or something like that, right? And then slowly it creeps into other stuff. But you make a good point that normally cheating once or twice a game would be enough for a GM to get a very significant boost. And especially if you look at Shevchenko, I mean, he's a much stronger GM than Rousey was pre-cheating. Yeah. And I think, my feeling is that Shevchenko, got most of the way to where he is. Honestly, probably he's a young player. I think he was maybe world junior champion. But he's a young player. He's like 26, 70 FIDE, top 100 in the world comfortably. So I think, one or two moves a game might be enough to put him in the top 10, he really wouldn't need very much of a boost. And I think he probably just started really, really recently and doesn't really know what he's doing if he's going like 10 times per game and acting so bizarre, right? I think he probably quickly fell on his face with this venture.
Well, he definitely fell on his face.
But like he did it so badly, several people in chat were saying like maybe he was framed. It's just too dumb. Like nobody could do it this badly, right? Especially you're a professional GM, your way around a tournament. I mean, I've never cheated, but I've spent enough time thinking about how other people cheat that when I see this, I think like, oh no, man, that's not how to do it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's what makes it so bizarre for me. It's like, you would think like, that's really his plan. He's going to put a phone in the bathroom and then like his first. So apparently if we're believing the story, his first phone gets found. So he gets there in the morning. There's no phone. So he has to like scramble to get a second phone. And then he writes a note on the second phone to be like this is his plan B.
There was a note on the first phone too, I think.
Oh, so there's a note on the first phone.
All day, but then at the end of the day, somebody
gets picked up and he's like, you know what? Let me do this again because it worked so well the first time because he drew his game. It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, people are asking like if you can identify that it's his phone with some biometric something or other, but presumably they're like burner phones or whatever, right? They're just sort of like, I don't think it's like his personal phone.
So he's smart enough to use a burner phone, but he's like
I don't know.
smart enough to use all the other stuff. Like, yeah, it's strange. I don't know. It's weird.
One
it's
thing
very
actually
sad
about a detail that David's synopsis was really good, but a detail is they found the phone round 2. They closed the stall, just like stall closed, as you see sometimes in the bathrooms around anywhere you go to. And it was a pretty hardcore thing of entrapment, because they would watch the guy come in and then not use the restroom and go out and then come back, So he was clear, it threw him off his game. And then they were able to observe that, So that was real bad.
Yeah, but then didn't he win the second game?
He won the second game.
But he wasn't able to access the bathroom?
Later on.
Later on.
Yeah.
Presumably
Later
he
on.
already had a winning position. Also, I think he was like a higher rated player, just period, than his opponents in these games, slightly. But
he's playing
he can certainly win a game.
right? Also like in the top 100.
Yeah, Vallejo's pretty good. Yeah, you just think like the whole thing would cause him, I don't know, to play worse or something. I don't know. So yeah, it's strange. But yeah.
What I'd love to see is some statement from him at some point, some contrition, something like that. It's always what I'd hope for, I just started, I made a mistake, I'm so sorry. Maybe some.
So far he hasn't said anything, right? He hasn't.
No, he's denied everything so far.
Oh,
he's
right,
denied stuff.
There was a statement written by like his teammate denying it. So right. A step in the wrong direction for me.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing is you're sort of aware that there's some cheating. For me, I basically accepted that there's some cheating and that I wasn't going to torture myself thinking about it. Right. I'm not going to worry about my opponents. I'm not going to be like, oh, this guy's got the runs or whatever. Like, I'm just going to like accept that at some point in my life, once or twice, somebody's going to cheat against me. I'll lose a game. I'll go on. I'll play the next game. I don't even have to know which game it was, right? Just life goes on.
I think it's a very important point, because like if you start going down that road, it's so toxic. And I've seen this with my student Jamil. Like I'm trying to get him to stop. He's like one of these pandemic players, starting to play online. And like when you get to 2000 ChessCom, it's roughly about 40% of players are cheating at the 2000 level. So just an extreme amount. So then, you're starting, you suspect, and you, I guess, not without reason, that all of your opponents are cheating,
Yeah.
Oh, and then it just consumes his mind. And I just like this downward spiral, and it's so hard for me to get him out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it was really like working on the ChessDojo and coaching people and seeing how upset they were about it that helped me realize we hurt ourselves more being upset about it than the cheaters hurt us by cheating.
Right.
Also because the amount of times people get upset is going to be like 10 times as often as it was actually cheating. When I was at chess.com, we would, and was in charge of the cheat detection program long ago, we would get cheat reports all the time from players rated 600, whose 600 rated opponent like hung their queen 10 times and the person thought they'd used an engine to win the game, So I had decided, okay, I'm just going to let it go, right? Just going to let it go. But then every now and then you hear an actual cheating story and you go, ooh, and it's still, it makes you think like, oh no, they're out there, and you have to let it go again, I guess.
But I agree with you guys. It's a very important point, because I feel like every time there's a big cheating scandal, the amount of cheating accusations always goes up, because there's like this kind of inbuilt hysteria. And I definitely noticed it with the dojo, like a couple of years ago, let's say like after like the Hans case, after like Rousis, after other like Kramnik and big stuff, I would just see like an uptick of like people accusing dojoers of cheating, like in our like weekend rapid tournaments, for example, which granted do have like some cheating, but it was a lot of those cases that David mentioned where someone plays badly and then wins the game, and then their opponent's like, oh, they were cheating because they won. One case, I actually suspect the guy the guy was so adamant about his opponent cheating. To me, it felt like he was running the engine during the game and saw his opponent's moves matching the engine and was like, oh, he must be cheating because he's matching every single move. Like that's to me what that was what the vibe felt like of that one. So yeah, I would stress, okay, what Jesse said about 2000 plus 40%, that's insane. I mean, I think like that basically means that like that's unplayable. Like I don't really play the chess.com rapid myself much, kind of for that reason, because I feel like, okay, my guess would have been 15-20% maybe, but like that's still way too much for me to play. But most people are going to be below that or playing blitz and then, going crazy about their opponents cheating. I think in general, I would suggest people not to do that. If you think your opponent's cheating, then like just report them. That's really the best thing you can do. Scraping their profile and then posting it to Discord and then asking others, do you think this guy's cheating, is basically just a waste of time. Like it's not going to affect anything. You just need to either report the person or not. And then, the site will deal with it.
Yeah.
So that's my PSA.
40% is mind blowing. And it's not necessarily a stat, folks. That's some kind of sampling from Jamil's experience, maybe.
Subjective. Yeah.
Well, so people in the chat are asking how I figured it out. And basically it's like, you go and look through the history and see how many accounts have been closed. Right? And so of course there's more cheating than that, but most of these people aren't that sophisticated. And the other thing that there's a lot of telltale signs, honestly. So for example, you start a game with somebody who's in that rating range, but has an account that was created recently. It's almost certainly somebody who was banned and then came back. There's nobody, for example, who is a strong player who has some kind of account on chess.com. I mean, maybe there's somebody, but it's very, there's telltale signs like that. And then those are exactly, you look back a week or two later and they're banned, So yeah, it's just extreme. I mean, I want to stress, this is not the blitz where I'm sure cheating happens as well, but it's a little bit harder to do just because you're moving faster. But I'm talking about like, we're playing these 30-0 games.
But the solution, of course, is to play against verified members like folks in the dojo that have had their accounts around for like several years and play our like classical events, just saying. Mm-hmm. So if people want, like safe training games online, long time controls, opponents do postmortems with you, check out the dojo tournament series.
Yeah.
Okay, should we move on?
Also, just don't worry about it. Just play chess, have fun.
Because just last point on this is like Shevchenko possibly getting caught. It doesn't. A lot of people are trying to relate to it to like the online thing of like a lot of online players getting accused of cheating. Shevchenko being one of the players that Kramnik pointed out as having like suspicious results online. To me, I feel like it's totally unrelated. Like, I think this is like an OTB case and it's, anyways, very, very different thing.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess FIDE will decide whether or not the guy gets a ban. So that'll play out. And for me, it's just an unpleasant reminder. But then afterwards, I just want to move on.
Okay, so let's move on to this next. Let's move on ourselves. And so I just want, maybe I'll start this one. I've known Christopher since he was 5 years old, and we did a camp together, and it was one of my first experiences with witnessing somebody with incredible chess talent. We were doing, I remember, Made in Twos from the Polgar book, and there was a lot of talented kids in that class that were older, and he was finding it so much faster. And it wasn't the case like he had trained him or something. That was his first time doing them. He's just a kid, and he was nailing him. So it was like, oh, here I can experience. Here's my, here I'm bearing witness to what is chess talent. Then later, we did a lot of sessions with a small group of players at the Berkeley Chess Club, where we'd go over games, we would do endgame work. And I thought he was a very nice kid. He was a happy kid, I felt. He was very good at singing songs. Like he could get the lyrics and sing it pitch perfect, like he would do old 80s hits and stuff. And it was really hilarious and beautiful. So, and then again, I saw him after years of not seeing him because I left the Berkeley area. I saw him this summer where he won the junior, where I was playing the US senior, but held concurrently, chatted a little bit. And him winning that event is what got him into the US championship, which is what we're going to talk about today. In all that time, very mild-mannered kid, not especially like, not a bruiser. This kid is not a bruiser. So when I think myself and other people heard the news, everyone's first reaction was, oh my God, St. Louis really overreacted here, because we just couldn't even imagine that he would do something like that. But I guess for me, the key detail of the story is, even though I haven't seen video of the incident yet, those who I trust who have say that he's getting off lightly with a 4th degree assault charge. So basically he hit this woman from the back, 24-year-old woman, videographer. My daughter thinks it's a big deal because I was telling them the story that it was a woman. I don't know, maybe it is. Depends how your cultural standpoint on whether that makes a difference or not. My daughter also thinks they need to put punching bags in chess tournament halls so people can take out their aggression after the game.
Let's make her president of FIDE.
But the one thing, so I'm good dating this very prominent psychologist woman who specializes in teen stuff. And when I told her the story, by the way, guys, I felt like I had to talk about it. I was like, because I felt like I knew this kid. I've been a fan of this kid for a long time. And so it really hit me. Anyways, what she said was interesting, where she said that probably it didn't come out of the blue for people who knew her, that something else was going on. And it wasn't just something that just happened, that somebody in his orbit would have known, wouldn't have been surprised by this. And I don't have any, clear data. I'm not a psychologist or anything like that. But I think it's important for the story that as I was following his career, there were a number of times where the kid stopped playing. It was very weird as a fan, because when you're a kid, now he's 17, almost 18, you never want to stop playing. And there was a whole period during COVID where he was out for more than a year. And then another period more recently where he was out for about a year. And so very weird. And if there's some kind of background to this, maybe that is part of the story. And I really want to stress that the brutality of this is he's kicked out of the club. US Chess has at least temporarily banning some, with some kind of investigation. And it's really rough. I mean, it's like chess is this kid's life. It's totally brutal. And let me just say, whether you believe there's some kind of background that happened before this or not, I'm not sure. But I do want to stress that the reason in law, in really all cultures, you excuse people who are younger than 18 or even 21 is because their prefrontal cortex isn't formed. This is the part of your brain which gives you clues on reading context, not losing your mind in a certain situation. So it's like a part of the brain that isn't even fully formed until you're in your mid-20s. And that's why we give these kids a pass. And part of the problem now is everything's on tape. So that when you're a kid, kids are going to do dumb things. And then now it's on tape, and then it's really hard to overcome that. So, although it's incredibly terrible what the kid did, I'm hoping for some kind of eventual forgiveness. All right, that's my spiel.
Yeah, it's very sad. I don't have much to add. Like Jesse, I've known Christopher for many years. He's always been like super nice kid. I remember we did like commentary with him. I remember, he'd be the type of kid that like he would apologize if he like thought he did something wrong or awkward, even when like there were no big deal. So really very sweet kid, but clearly like I don't know what happened or what's been going on with him, but it's very sad. It's obviously something, it's like psychological. And yeah, I don't know. I don't really like, feel like analyzing it. I don't know like what we can really cover there. But yeah, it was weird. I guess I'm very close to it here. But yeah, just like very unfortunate story. Like just such a tragedy.
Yeah, I think what Jesse's saying about younger people and the prefrontal cortex, I think younger people get lighter sentences in many cases, but they don't necessarily get a pass, right?
Right.
Like, like there's more of a thought that they could correct course or rehabilitate or apologize or make right, or there's less of a society's ready to give up on you kind of feeling with somebody younger. But it doesn't mean that you can do whatever you want and that we don't think like that you could have known not to do it, right? Because I mean, when a 7-year-old punches another 7-year-old in the yard, okay, they don't get dragged off by police, but they do get told that it's wrong. And there's already a sense like, well, you were kind of supposed to learn this at 4 or 5. So you get some kind of a talking to or pulled out of, right? Like there are corrections provided at many points along the way. So there are things that you're supposed to know right or wrong. And I guess the idea is maybe you have more lapses of judgment when you're younger or something like that, or less coping tools for controlling your emotions or dealing with stressful situations, but that you still have responsibility for what you do, especially, depending how obvious a line you cross, right? Like a kid who feels like they're under some pressure and, peaks at an answer on a test or something like that is different than somebody who attacks somebody, right? So there's different levels of how obvious is it that it's wrong? What kind of situation were you in? So, when you take somebody who's 1 year younger than being an adult and who does something that's maybe an actual crime, not just like a little mistake or something, then I mean, you're on the borderline, right? You're not talking about an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old.
Kostya, I wanted to ask you a little bit about procedure there at the club, because the first thing, I think like everyone, I thought the club overreacted at first because I couldn't even imagine it doing what he did. But it seemed to me the club acted very quickly. And as I thought about it, it seemed related to the club's past traumas, right? So first, the trauma of the Ramirez scandal, where they did nothing, right? Or too little, too late. And then also the Neiman one, where, they got in a lot of heat. And so my sense was like they've put in all these safeguards in place where they're trying to really avoid precisely something like this happening. And then, having an instant solution to it. Like, I think just not too long ago, it's hard for me to imagine that they would have come to a conclusion that, by the way, it's not just about this kid, it's about the tournament. It really wrecks a tournament, any kind of round robin, when somebody leaves, even if it's just sickness or whatever, it really wrecks the tournament. So I'm wondering if you have any insight on that culture in the club. And one of the things that I recalled as I was thinking about the story was like all the people in the club you told us had to go to like a training after the Ramirez scandal. So that was like, oh yeah, they've really gone deep with the lawyers and setting up situations and trying to follow the rules.
And that, I mean, that's not just the club. I mean, I think that's like anyone that like is some kind of like official like US chess person. So like if you're working like a US chess event, like you got to go through some, like it's a US chess rule now, not just a club thing. Yeah, so I'm not really sure. So yeah, like I wasn't there, like I didn't see the incident. I think the issue was because I know a lot of people had that reaction that the club overreacted. I don't really know. Again, I wasn't there. I didn't see it. But a part of the problem was, I think, just the timing of how stuff came out. Like for me, when I learned about the incident, it was like I learned Christopher like was super upset after his game. He like left the room and then he hit this woman like really hard is what I heard. And then they called the police and then they told me like he's kicked out of the tournament. And so for me, like that timeline like makes sense. Like, okay, he hit someone apparently so hard they had to call the police. Like they kick him out of the tournament. That to me, that seems very fair. What people online saw was like he crumpled up his score sheet after the game with Fabi. And then like this news breaks that he's like out of the tournament. And then people like didn't like hear why, like they didn't understand why. They like, I remember there was like comments online, people thinking like he's kicked out because he crumpled up his score sheet. And so like, I think the timing was a little bit messed up, but like now that the details are coming out, like Chris Bird like was tweeting about how bad it was. Levon like put a tweet out. So now I think people are like, yeah, starting to understand that it was probably like a pretty big thing. But yeah, is the club sensitive because of all the stuff that's happened recently? I mean, I'm not sure. I would imagine they are. It's like there's a lot of scrutiny. I think anything that comes out of St. Louis, people are always like immediately scrutinizing and trying to see if there's any fault to pick at. I think that's just what things are like now. Yeah. No, also I just gotta say, like, it's a very stuff like this doesn't normally happen. There's not a lot of like precedent for cases like this. So it's, yeah, I think super messy story.
Yeah, I was surprised by how quickly they had a decision. Myself, I thought that they would need more time to process whatever it was without even knowing what they were processing, but just to see a same day decision. I just expect days and days review, not to say that that's right or wrong or anything. It's just my expectation at this point is that people have to mull things over. I don't know. I'm used to waiting to hear decisions, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. They don't exactly have days. They basically have until like tomorrow to decide if he's allowed to stay in the tournament, like they got like a couple hours basically.
Right. Well, I could imagine that they have to make a decision about the next day's game in the tournament, but I recall the official statement saying that he was banned from the chess club, which I took to mean for life. Maybe that's not the case. Maybe he was banned from the chess club for the tournament, like he can't come even though he's not playing or something. Maybe I over assumed on that one.
Yeah, I'm not really sure the details on that. That might just be like a policy thing.
But it's true they had to make a decision about whether or not he was still in the tournament pretty quickly. So yeah, it makes sense. That way you get a faster decision.
And actually, just to put this in context, I really want people out there listening to understand that when you play a round robin tournament, like let's say you're playing and you got a little stomach bug. No, you keep playing. You keep playing. There's no, it ruins the tournament. If your girlfriend left you and you're feeling sad, if you're playing an open tournament, sure, leave. I don't care. But if you're playing a round robin, it's just not done because it wrecks the whole event, right? And so to put it in context, right, we can argue about whether St. Louis was right to ban hands and the way they treated him. But after that event with Magnus, right, they let him finish the tournament, right, because that would have killed the tournament. And then they banned him. So it wasn't like this where they're like, oh, stop.
Hold on, Jesse. They didn't ban him because of the Sinkfield Cup. They banned him because he like trashed the hotel room after last year's U.S. championship. Like it was completely different.
In the context of withdrawing from round robins, you're actually mentioning a round robin where Magnus withdrew from a round robin.
That's true, dude. That's
which
true.
was
Yeah.
the absolute shocking no of it all. Like that Magnus withdrew from that tournament was like, not permissible at all. Yeah. He wrecked it for everybody there. That was big time.
Yeah, that was huge.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. So obviously the club understands that removing a player from the round robin is a huge thing. So yeah, clearly, I mean, it must have been bad enough. So.
And people were asking in chat about how this affects stuff. And the obvious thing to say is Fabi is continuing to kill the tournament. This event didn't harm his stride. He won again against Oparin in the next round. So, and of course he was the one who beat you in this game where you felt he was better. And I think he was. And, he just keeps going. But in any case, of course, he loses that victory, which if you give it to him, I mean, he's already slain the tournament, but if you give it to him, like the chances of him winning the tournament are just much higher. Right? Yeah. So it's definitely a real problem for anyone who beat him in the event.
Yeah, but okay, that's the FIDE rule. So I think that's kind of just, I don't really know if there's a better way of doing it, but yeah, that's the FIDE rule. If a player leaves before the halfway mark, the results get annulled. Everyone loses the point. Again, I think that's the timing thing. There are so many comments like, oh, this is so unfair for Fabi and so on. So like Wesley also beat Christopher. Wesley also loses that point. Like it's also just as unfair for for Wesley. But it's unfortunate.
It's on whether half the games have been played, right? So they were one game away from his results would have maybe counted. It would have changed the FIDE rule.
So yeah, I think if they're past the halfway mark, if it's like round 6 out of 11, then they count all the games, and then the rest of Christopher's opponent would get a half point for the tournament, which is also unfair for them because they lose the chance.
Those who won, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They'd have the point in the book, and no one else would have the opportunity.
But yeah, I don't think there's really a perfect solution. One way or another, someone's kind of getting a bit hosed.
Yeah, as Jesse said, like withdrawing from round robins like ruins the event. It's not like FIDE can write a better rule that makes it all work out fairly.
Yeah.
Kostya, let me ask you another question. So after the whole Ramirez scandal, we talked about this, right? Lichess was like, nah, St. Louis, we're not going to deal with you. Mm-hmm. We're going to not stream your events. And then chess.com also was like, okay, we're going to follow that lead. And I wonder if you have any insight on what the status of St. Louis with both of those organizations, because when I go to watch the event on chess.com, I can find it, but it's surprisingly buried. It's buried beneath the Guernsey International Chess Festival. Okay, that's what it's buried underneath. So I'm wondering if there's some kind of story. You know anything about that?
Yeah, I don't know much. I mean, I know St. Louis. I mean, they're broadcasting the event on chess.com. I know they were showing the official live stream of St. Louis for the US Championships on chess.com as well. So they gave them the embed. So I couldn't really tell you. I assume things are okay. Lichess, I think, is still not broadcasting their games as far as I've seen. Mm-hmm. So Lichess still out.
And there's no word actually at all about what happened with the Ramirez situation, right? It just continues to go on in legal land. I mean, I haven't heard anything. So
yeah, I haven't either. I don't know. I have no updates there. But yeah, that's funny. Chess.com should show the US Championships a bit higher. I mean, maybe it's, maybe GCL first, Team Chess Battle second, and then US Championships third. I think that would be fair.
The Münsterland Open is ahead, Some FM on first board. Yeah.
I'm sure it's just a mistake. Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't look like it was. Anyways, there's a history there. And I think, let's just say it's another bummer for the club. And let me just put this in context. 2009, 2008 is when the St. Louis club started. And before that, our US championships were kind of cool, but they didn't have a lot of money. There wasn't a center of chess. And now we have this incredible center of chess in the United States. It's a huge accomplishment. We have created a world chess mecca. But then incidents like this are causing people to second guess the good intentions of the club. And it's weird. It's like, and honestly, one of the interesting things about the reactions I felt was when that first wave of reactions came in, it was this very judgmental feeling of like, oh God, St. Louis has really screwed it up again, So
yeah, unfortunately, I think that's the culture. I think people are, and not just with St. Louis, with other chess.com as well. People are often looking to point fingers and blame. By the way, okay, it's a chess.com's credit real quick. I just checked chess.com/events. They've got their current live stream up. Then it's the team chess battle. And then US championships is right there. Third, they got a whole graphic for it. So
mine is number 8.
Chess.com/events. It's right there.
Maybe they've got a thing where they display it in different orders for different people, because some people in chat are saying it's first for them. And maybe it's sort of like a democratic-ish thing, right? Where it sort of shows in different orders for different people so that different events get a chance to be seen.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
But there's something I wanted to say about this Chris Yu incident, which is, first of all, it's sad, period, right? From all angles. And I don't know the person who was attacked, and I'm sure it's a very awful thing for them. I only know this from the angle of, Chris Yu and a little video of him and Fabi at the end of their game, and Chris looking really upset. Mm-hmm. And so from that side, not saying it's the most important side, but from that side, I just wonder if some of Chris's suffering might be coming from chess, and whether not playing chess or being banned from chess or looking at spending more time on other aspects of life might not be a good thing for Chris. We think of a ban as being punishment, but a ban might also be a good thing if you're really suffering, right? And Jesse mentioned how there have been a couple periods where Chris took time off from chess, and maybe it's just not a great place for him right now to be in chess. Some people say, oh, maybe it's a lot of pressure for a youth to be on camera, to be in professional events, to have people watching them and commenting them in hordes online. And I've certainly met a lot of chess players who seem to be suffering in their chess, right? So when I see some of these sad stories, which almost I don't even want to spend time thinking about and talking about, but I guess we try to talk about everything. Because I'm also thinking of Ding when I'm thinking of people who are maybe playing chess and suffering a lot. Mm-hmm. When I see these situations, I sometimes think maybe a break, including a very long break from chess, would be for the best. Maybe it's not to say that chess completely does something like this to somebody who otherwise would have no problems at all or something like that. But I think, your relationship to chess can become an unpleasant or a toxic thing that you're suffering more from than you're gaining from. And sometimes, and it doesn't have to be chess, but sometimes a particular activity can be a problem, and it might be better to step back from it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. I think chess can exacerbate problems as well. So I would agree. Probably a break is good. And yeah, it's unfortunately because to me, he's definitely still very much a kid at 17, very much still growing and developing. And the story is like so public now, and it's like, it's unfortunate.
I've had students, and it had nothing to do with the pressure of getting to the top level, right? But I've had students who at some point like were suffering from playing chess and took and stopped, right? You guys have probably both had students who stopped playing chess at various periods, right? Like it happens. Sometimes you're playing chess and you realize that it's not bringing you joy, or that it's hurting your coconuts too much, right? And you take a break. And it's a lovely thing if you're able to come back in a better way at some point in the future. And if you can have a better relationship with chess a year down the road or 5 years down the road, just because you stop doesn't mean you're done forever, right? But sometimes a break is the right thing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Maybe we should get a break.
Yeah, I think it's probably a good time to end it there. Yeah, I'm sorry for the heavy episode, folks, but yeah, a lot of unfortunate things happening.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for listening. We'll catch you all next time. Bye-bye.